Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 94 of the Pregame Network podcast. I am your host, Dan, joined by my bestest pal in the whole wide world, Anthony, and
Hello.
we're gonna we're gonna be talking about more video game stuff this week. And it's been also a pretty stacked week, if I do say
Yeah,
so myself.
a couple doozies
Um,
right back to back to back.
oh yes. So as always, we'll begin with what we've been playing, and then just jump right into the news proper. Um, you could take us in first if you want.
Yeah, so I most of my rotational stuff has kind of been just out the window this week.
Okay.
The only thing from the rotation that survived the culling was Street Fighter 6. Me and Harrison played quite
The
a bit of it.
culling.
Yeah, don't I'll be going back to it obviously, but as you know, I've been having a bit of a moment, Daniel, since last
Mm.
week. Where I've just been going nuts. A mixture of there's projects I want to do and Requiem right around the corner. I've been pinballing across multiple Resident Evil titles, and last week I think I said like I was doing some Mercenaries and 4, the remake, and then I said something like I was playing around in the remake of 2, and then I jumped to a couple of the older ones. I was just kind of jumping all over the place. I think I've touched pretty much every Resident Evil game this week. Looking at my console right now, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 2, I'm sorry, Resident Evil Revelations 2, Resident Evil 6, Resident Evil Village, original Resident Evil 4, even Resident Evil Remake 3, which I fucking hate, Resident Evil 5. I played Resident Evil Outbreak File 1 on the PlayStation 2. I played what is arguably the worst game in the series, Resident Evil Gun Survivor 2, which is like this wonky arcade game that got a wonky console port. Played a little bit of the original one on the Saturn version, and I played a little bit of the original version of Resident Evil 3 as like a palate cleanser. I fucking played Umbrella Corps the other day. Yeah, so it's all about Resident Evils, the good ones, the bad ones, the spin-offs, the mainline. I got to play the Slayers multiplayer mode in Resident Evil 5 with you and Harrison, which was a treat because I haven't played that in
That
a
was
long
a
time.
lot of fun. That was
Yeah,
a good time.
yeah, when you play it with people who you just like know and are friendly with, it basically turns into like a light competitive version of Mercenaries, you know?
Well, I
So
mean, that's pretty much what it is.
yeah, it's the shame about Resident Evil 5 on the PC is that it never got what was it? It never got Mercenaries United, which is like a mixed version of both the Mercenaries that came out for the game, the base game Mercenaries and the DLC Mercenaries. That's a console exclusive for whatever reason, but the Slayers, regular Mercenaries, the campaign, it's still a good time on there. But yeah, it's just been nothing but Resident Evil. I am fully on board I won't say hype train because I'm not one of those hype men
Well,
guys, but
didn't you
I'm
put your
ready.
excitement level at a 9
Yeah,
yesterday?
I'm at like a 9
That's
now.
pretty fucking hyped to me.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I could very well easily be, you know, let down, I guess. I had this theory to myself. I was musing to myself while I was working on shit where it's like, I've said to you, I say to anybody who asks me about these games, it's like, when they did the whole return to form, whether you agree with it is subjective, but when they did the whole return to form thing with Resident Evil 7 and then a sequel to Resident Evil 8, I said Resident Evil 1 is basically like a soft reboot reinterpretation of the formula that Resident Evil 1 had, and 4 and 8 is much the same for 4. And I have a theory, and it's very possible based on everything I've seen, that Requiem could be that but for 6, and that would be funny, and it could also be tragic, and it could also be terrible. But it's not very often I lay down full money on a brand new release on day one. So I can
That
afford this.
speaks
Like,
volumes for you.
yeah, I can afford to do this like every 4 years or so, and I don't mean like literally afford. It's just like I am that guy where it's just like I put my we've had arguments up and down throughout the years where it's like vote with your wallet. Does it matter? Does it not? But it's like I'm not gonna just blindly spend money if I don't feel they deserve it. So I'm very very good with that. You know, with the caveat that like I do some sailing later, but yeah, it's been a Resident Evil week for me. That's where I'm at, and it's where I will be until I beat Requiem and maybe even a little beyond, God willing. So that's what I've been playing this week.
Okay. As far as I go, little bit of this, little bit of that. I finally fulfilled all my expedition requirements in Arc Raiders, so I'm just
Yes,
waiting
you
for the
mentioned.
expedition window to open up. We played Resident Evil 5, and I started the campaign as well. I forgot how good Resident Evil 5 is.
I mean,
We did
I
a
was
bunch.
yeah, I was just not to, I don't want to interrupt you, but I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and like I basically said like, say what you will about throughout the series, survival horrors kind of get into, but I have people who I wouldn't say are fans, but are like have light passing interest in Resident Evil just because of 5 alone, you know?
Yeah, that was probably, well, no, 4 was what got me into Resident Evil. I'm not as big of a fan as you, but
Mm.
4 is what attracted me in the first place, and then 5 came out, and we went balls deep into Resident Evil 5. We played a lot of the original. Oh, well,
Yeah.
they didn't remake it yet, so
Well,
yeah,
you know what?
played a
I know
lot
what
of
you mean,
Resident Evil
like the
5.
port, original version, original
Yeah.
release.
Um, so springboarding off of Resident Evil 5, I probably spent like 3 or 4 hours today playing Resident Evil 4 Mercenaries. I just wanted to scratch that itch. It's
Uh-huh.
so much fun. It's so clean. It's just a shame that it's not co-op, but I digress. Hopefully, Requiem will remedy that, but
Yeah.
that remains to be seen. The leak or the not leaks, but like it was one snippet of the trailer of Leon and the hell is her name? I don't
Grace.
remember her name. Yeah, Leon and Grace like standing in the middle of the screen, but they were just surrounded by a vast empty space, and like generally Resident Evil will use that as like a portrait space for the whole cast of characters for
Hmm.
Mercenaries mode. So hopefully that's true, not just a rumor.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
what I'll just say about that real quick is we still know nothing about
yeah.
side content and the like, and I mean, chances are we're looking at like a free post release kind of thing. What form it'll take, I don't know. But it's like Resident Evil 2, the remake had its original mode, the Fourth Survivor, which is like a gauntlet kind of thing, and then they added for free the Ghost Survivors, which were all mini gauntlets and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Remake of 3 was alongside Resident Evil Resistance and RE-verse, whatever you think of those. No, wait. It was Resistance, and then RE-verse was alongside 8, I think. I get the misplaced because they're just kind of crappy spin-offs. Eight had the Mercenaries. 7 had a whole slew of paid DLC content after the fact. They had like 8 different things they added because that game did really
Yeah,
well.
didn't was it Biohazard or Village that had like a pretty robust Mercenaries mode? I think it was Village.
Village. I wouldn't say Village had a robust Mercenaries mode, but it did have its own take on it, which is it was almost closer
Right.
to There's you wouldn't know this, but the older games, the original minigame that they tried was called Battle Game,
Okay.
and what it was it basically took different rooms from whatever mansion. In the first one, it was the mansion, but obviously 2 had this, and Code Veronica had this, and they basically lined up different rooms and different arrangements for challenge purposes and filled them with enemies, and you needed to make it to the end in a certain amount of time without healing a certain way and while doing kills. And this version of Mercenaries in Village, it was basically that, but with Mercenaries like with like this weird roguelike Mercenaries thing thrown in where you could find power-ups in addition to that, and then like each stage you would take a break and go to a completely random, or not random, but like random for the context stage in a progressing area to area. It wasn't quite one-to-one Mercenaries, and it was fine for what it is. I haven't spent too much time with the gold edition, which I think is called Additional Orders, where you play as like all the bosses from Village, but yeah, it had its own kind of Mercenaries. But basically what I'm getting at is it is strange that we haven't heard anything about Requiem's additional content. Some of the leaks and rumors I've heard is that as of right now, it's not on the disc, you know.
Okay.
But every time that the developers have been asked, they've been very coy with it. So it's either going to be the first disappointment or the first, I should say, disappointment of this nature, where there's just absolutely fucking nothing, or it's going to be something like a side game that launches alongside with it, or a free update, kind of like Resident Evil 4 Mercenaries got updated, and stuff like that.
The original Resident Evil 4.
No, I'm talking about the remake, because the remake, I think, only launched with half of the content it has now, and then like a free patch came out later and updated it.
Because when I was playing it earlier, there's 4 maps, and there's only what I would describe as a handful of characters. There's not that many characters to play as.
Yeah.
And I remember the maps being there at launch, so I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm pretty sure it only launched with 3 maps and half the characters. And then when they did the Separate Ways DLC, they added the remainder. It was like a free...
Oh,
like,
you know what? You're right. Yeah.
Separate Ways was paid. The update to Mercenaries was free.
Okay. I actually never beat Separate Ways. I should probably do that.
Yeah, it's okay for what it is. I can't stand the voice actress for Ada for the remake game, so I can't fucking get through it. You may as well play it if you have it. So
anyway, so yeah, I've been doing a good chunk of Mercenaries today in RE4 remake. I also jumped back into Killing Floor 3. I just had the urge for whatever reason. I think it's like my undying love for horde shooters, which I ironically got started with Killing Floor 2 back in the day. No, I'm lying. Killing Floor 1, but that's neither here nor there.
It would have to be Killing Floor 1, because otherwise you'd be thanking Gears of War.
Yeah, fair enough. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it, because I have like more Killing Floor stuff to get to later. But it would be way more enjoyable and just a better product overall if the optimization for Killing Floor 3 wasn't complete fucking dog shit. I am lucky if I get like 55 frames on my laptop at 1080, mind you. Yeah. Now, if I can run a game like Arc Raiders, no problem, like 90 frames plus in 1080, yeah, that's not my fault, I was actually playing earlier today, and there was something up with like the input lag. I could only imagine that I was connecting to a host or a server like way, way, way far away, because if you look at the Steam charts right now, Killing Floor 3 is like in really rough shape. However, I never have an issue connecting to a match, so I don't know what's going on there. I mean, it does have crossplay, but like I can't imagine that the people on console that vastly outnumber the people on PC. So I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, I don't know. Really weird. Again, Killing Floor 3 would be a much better game if it just fucking functioned properly. But whatever. Beyond that, we did some Helldivers yesterday. Yep. And I've been playing some more Battlefield, but Battlefield has been fucking pissing me off lately. Like, I get into these matches where I almost always play Breakthrough, and it's because I like the linear trajectory of the match of capture the 2 points in front of you. Once you get the sectors captured, then you move up and so on and so forth. And it's just a big tug of war between the two teams. But the matches I've been getting in Battlefield lately have just been complete sweat fests, or at least that's how I perceive it. Like, I just can't have a good time, and I don't know what is going on. It's like one match out of every 3 to 5, and that's too few in my opinion.
And most notably, it wasn't like this initially for you. Yeah,
agreed. Yes. So, yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much all I've been playing this week. Something... Was it Resident Evil that's coming out soon? I feel like something was coming out soon that I was looking forward to that I just can't think of right now. But anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like an update or a content patch.
If it comes to mind, I just shout it out. But.
Yeah. So anyway, with that out of the way, we can get into the news proper.
But
I might as well start with Killing Floor. What?
But before you do, we have a write-in this week.
Yeah. Hey! Okay, let's hear it.
All right. Why do you think there's this surge of corporations making slop no one asked for, which inevitably fails in spectacular fashion? For context, the Concorde 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 failure train comes to mind. Dan, I have my own answer, Dan, but you can go first.
I think a really big chunk of this comes from COVID. I think a really big chunk comes from COVID. Not all of it, but I think a big chunk of it comes from COVID. And everything that we see in the gaming industry is is like everything that makes it into our hands as players was being built and developed years before, right? So everything that we're seeing now, and even like the past year or two, has been was developed uh, in large part during the pandemic. When everybody was
Mm-hmm.
stuck inside, the online gaming craze was at an all-time high, complete glass ceiling there. And companies started expanding rapidly because, oh my goodness, we have all these people playing our game. We can't sustain this level of players. We need to hire more people. Now we have the player count and the funding to make a new game, and just go down the list. I think a big chunk of it is that. I also think a big chunk of it is just the whole AI clusterfuck right now as it is. Um, we see a lot of games now that seemingly just have like zero, not human input, but like zero inspiration. That's a better word.
Okay.
I also think it's a lot of business executives that have no idea what makes a good video game and what makes a not coherent, but what makes like a competent product in the medium of a video game.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the decision making is not necessarily hijacked, but just not considered when it comes to what the end product looks like. I'm sure there are other factors that I'm just not considering, but I think, at least in my opinion, that is probably the bulk of why we're seeing so much of this. So, like people love to say Concord 2, 3, 4, blah, blah, blah. And that's turned into like an extremely negative connotation, and for good reason.
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
and it just like, it, I've actually been thinking about this recently because like I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
think of what makes that a thing. Like what makes a game get thrown into that classification of like that it's so bad, like it's a Concord 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not necessarily the sum of its parts, but it's a lot of different things coming together to just give the average gamer and the not average gamer. I think like you and I are not average in the sense of that we keep our ear to the ground regarding the industry overall. We could just smell it a mile away.
Yeah.
And even with, regular like average gamers, even them you could just smell it a mile away. Like it's so on the nose that it's kind of hard to believe that it actually happens this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's like the bulk of my answer. But yeah, man, like I guess, like I said, I'm sure there's other factors that I'm not considering, but I think the pandemic is a big part of it. Of just like of false growth. Does that make sense? I think that's probably the
No, that
best
that makes sense. I
term
think I think
to
everybody's
use.
acknowledged at this point that I mean, you could see it coming a mile away from there. Is that the lockdowns really just led to a lot of unprecedented profit, and unprecedented, times.
Yeah.
There's a whole list of games out there that wouldn't have even, sold well as just like a regular experience of single player or multiplayer without the numbers from, the pandemic, But
Yeah.
I think that my biggest thing, you named a lot of things that all factor together to it, I would say. My biggest thing is kind of what I talked about last week, where we were talking about the new Horizon game, where I'm just like, oh, this game has been in development for like 8 years. It's just the AAA bloat leads to us as an industry and customers seeing a slow trickle of ideas that failed like 4 years ago, and the reason why this particular, everyone's calling it like the Concord trilogy or the Concord timeline and all this kind of stuff. The reason why that one's so prevalent is because it's also mixed with the live service chasing that these companies we're going to do regardless. But if you factor in how long it takes to develop these games, how many people are pitching them, and the fact that live service is just like the most alluring thing to the corporations, it's its own unique little thing, I guess, So
Yeah.
you named a lot of the smaller things. I think those are my biggest things, and the biggest reason you see something like this Concord extended universe
Right.
and whatnot.
And it's all in pursuit of a giant profit. You know,
Of
especially
course.
games as a service, because you could just keep on milking the player base for
Hmm.
this, that, and the other thing. Whereas you just make like a really solid experience, even if it is supposed to be a persistent online experience.
Hmm.
Um, you by you developing a better product foundationally, it will pay dividends down the line, and it doesn't even have to be a game as a service. You know,
Yeah.
like even
No,
let's take Resident Evil 4 remake for example. I know you're not crazy about it, but it got global praise and for good reason. Like it's a good, competent, well put together product. So it just it behooves the average developer and studio way more to make a thing the greatest it could possibly be than to just chase that profit. And like
mhm.
take Highguard for example. Uh, Highguard especially is like so mind-boggling to me because of who made it, and they didn't see what half of the things that people hated about it, like deep into development. It's just
Well,
it boggles my mind.
that has the High Guard in particular was a special case because that was a mixture of like the peak of toxic positivity, which we talked about last week, and also with the new
Right.
revelations that Tencent was involved in the funding. So I
Yep.
imagine that it was, I think my biggest thing is mismanagement and toxic positivity. I think the aspect of them having funding from Tencent is a little sketchy, but I think that at the end of the day, the biggest
Well, the
issue
fact that it was
was
hidden.
like, no, I mean that's a problem. I'm not saying that isn't, but I'm saying that has nothing to do with the direction of the game. That's just
Right.
weird
Yeah.
and sketchy, and who knows? Maybe they were also the ones patting them on the back, saying, "Oh, you can do no wrong," But yeah,
Possibly.
so, but that's my take on it. Is like I think the biggest factors are just they're all chasing lightning in a bottle, but it's lightning in a bottle of a different kind, where it's just the industry happens to be in the slowest pace it's ever been, while corporations and executives at the top are tantalized by a unique monetization thing they will never catch.
Yeah, for real. It's really sad because it is not so slowly completely eroding everything about video games, what makes them special.
Mm,
So,
certainly doesn't help.
yeah. Anyway, thanks for the question. They have consistently been very good questions, so
There you
I
go.
love it. Keep it coming. All right. What was I was about to say
You were
something
going
about
to lead
the
into Killing Floor.
right. Okay. So, Killing Floor 3, we got a roadmap a few days ago, just kind of detailing Tripwire's plans for 2026,
Mm,
and a lot of it. I mean, it looks good. It looks promising, right? It also just kind of looks like every other live service roadmap I've ever seen, which is whatever. But the game desperately needs more content, and on top of everything that they're adding, being like new perks, new weapons, new maps, new enemy types. Like the list kind of goes on. They're also bringing back the Killing Floor workshop, which I think is really cool. Which is basically what made Killing Floor what it was in like what made it so special in the first place, of just essentially user-generated content. Like yeah, you can say what you want about the Steam workshop, but they're getting their own type of workshop thing that
mhm.
just enables other players to make what they want. I don't know. I don't think it's like a full SDK or anything like that, but it's enough that I would equate it to like Battlefield Portal. That's how I would put it.
Okay.
Um, so I'm glad that Killing Floor 3 has somewhat of a future for right now. The player numbers on Steam, like I brought up before, are still pretty abysmal. I'm gonna check it right now actually, because every time I look at it, I'm just like, oof.
Yeah,
So right now, there's 400 people on the dot
that's
on
rough.
Steam playing Killing Floor
That's
3.
rough.
That's by any other metric, that's a fucking dead game. That is a fully dead game
Yeah.
by like Steam PC standards. I have no idea what the player counts are on console, but they've got to be okay because, like I said, I never have an issue getting into a match.
Hmm.
Granted, I think today I kind of saw behind the scene a little bit because the connection was just god awful.
Ooh.
Um, but I still think it's fun. Like I don't, so I
I
don't want to
didn't
go
have
on
a
a whole
problem
Killing
with
Floor
it.
rant. I really don't. What, the game itself?
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, no, neither do I. But people love to hate it because it's not Killing Floor 2.
That makes it
And
tough.
Killing Floor,
That makes it really tough.
yeah, but Killing Floor 2 didn't launch on a great state either. It launched at like
Hmm.
30 gigs and it ballooned up to about 100. And
Hmm.
it that's a bunch of content and microtransactions and blah blah blah. But it took Tripwire a long time to put Killing Floor 2 where they wanted it and where the community knows it now. Hopefully, Killing Floor 3 gets there because I do think it's fun. But the god damn it, Tripwire fixed the optimization. Holy shit! I'm not going to spend too much time on Killing Floor because it's just it's going to be saying the same thing over and over again. So,
Fair.
Killing Floor 3 actually looks like they have somewhat of a future. So I am happy about that, and we will see what happens. Let's see. Moving on from here, we already went over Tencent backing Wildlight for High Guard. Did we talk about the layoffs yet? I don't. Did that happen last week or this week?
Which
That happened
layoffs?
this week. Wildlight laid off like the vast majority of the studio.
We talked about that last week.
Okay, never mind then. Moving on from there. Okay, I didn't talk about the Destiny drama going on, did I? Which is also a good time to talk about Marathon.
Yeah,
Uh,
you put off the Destiny drama. You put off the Destiny drama. Yeah.
okay, so I guess I'll get into that a little bit. It has been a pretty widely accepted thing, at least in the Destiny community overall, that Destiny 2 is dying a death of 1,000 cuts uh, by way of Bungie working on Marathon.
Mhm.
Now, I'm bringing this up because Marathon launches on March 5th, which is a Thursday. That's a weird day for a game to come out. Marathon launches March 5th, and the next Destiny 2 major content, it's not an expansion, it's just like a major content update. That was supposed to launch on March the 3rd, which is a Tuesday. That's Destiny's reset day. It's always been.
Yeah.
Now, they put out you know what? I should find the tweet because it is a fucking doozy. Basically, the whole point, like the community thought, okay, like we knew they were gonna push back the Shadow and Order. I think it's called the Shadow and Order update because they wanted to give Marathon breathing room, which is fine. Like that's fair. But no one knew any of the details of that.
Mhm.
All we knew was that there was going to be some kind of a delay because they didn't say anything, and they just weren't saying anything. And this has unfortunately been the theme of Destiny over the past
Yes.
almost year at this point.
Mhm.
I'm trying to find this tweet, man. Shit. Hold on. Give me 1 second. 'Cause I think it's really important to read because I read it and I was just like, oh my God. Like the general sentiment now is basically Destiny 2 is definitely like going out to the farm. um, uh, I gotta see if I can find this. I don't want there to be like a bunch of dead air, so I'm trying to talk my way through it as I'm trying to look for this tweet. There we go. Found it. Okay. So this is the Destiny 2 tweet that Bungie put out, or that Destiny the game Twitter account put out. I'm going to read it
Okay.
verbatim.
Hit me.
Our next major update, Destiny 2 Shadow and Order, is undergoing large revisions and will be delayed. This update is being changed and expanded to include sizable quality of life updates, and as a result will also be renamed. This update will now launch on June 9th, 2026. We will provide exact details closer to release, covering previously announced weapon tier upgrading, but also additions like expanding tiered gear to all raid and dungeon activities, Pantheon 2.0, tier 5 stats for exotic armors, and more. Through June, we will continue to have routine bug fixes and stability improvements, continued portal modifiers, Guardian games, which comes out in March, and the return of a more frequent Iron Banner cadence, which is happening in April.
Okay.
In terms of communications, we will be focusing on providing you with updates about our live game content, community activations, community activations, and general upkeep through the This Week in Destiny and our Destiny
Yes.
social
You almost
channels.
said twam.
Thank you for your thank you for your continued patience and support. We will have more information on our next major update and future plans for Destiny 2 closer to launch. See you, Starside. So that is
Okay.
the entire tweet. Now, when the community received this from Bungie, it was basically another nail in the coffin, if not the death blow
Ooh.
for a lot of different people. All of the content creators that I've been following for the past several years, even though I don't really play the game anymore, I still kind of like to poke my head inside and see what's going on in that sphere, because I've done so many hours and I was so attached to the game for so long. While I'm not invested in the game anymore, I'm still pretty invested in just like how Destiny 2 is going to wind up. I'm still very interested in how that turns out.
Yeah. I get that entirely. Like there's a lot of games where I check in from time to time, even if I'm not necessarily as invested. Like, you know, to a lesser extent, 14, you know, Final Fantasy 14, because if there's a good expansion, I'll probably go back and, you know, pay my respects. And then there's also like games like Guilty Gear Strive, which is just a hot mess, but I gotta see how it ends at the very least, you know.
Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of what I read off didn't make any sense to you, like weapon tier upgrading and Pantheon and tiered gear for raid and dungeon, blah blah blah. It doesn't really matter.
I can put two and two together. I can understand the content spread.
I will say that the vast majority of those things that I listed, people have been asking for about 8 months, give or take.
Okay.
And Bungie has just been fucking radio silent about this. And now we get this tweet that is, so they're not pushing the game back by a couple weeks to give Marathon breathing room. They're not pushing it back by a month. They're pushing it back by 3 fucking months. Yeah. So it's coming out on June 9th when it was supposed to be coming out on March 3rd. And even if it was going to be coming out at the end of March, whatever, like that is a real big gap between content updates for a live service game. And I don't really know. I know I've said it all before, but like as time goes on, it really becomes the situation becomes more and more dire, and people are just leaving in droves, and they have been. And now I don't know what's wrong with the Shadow and Order update, that not only are they pushing it back by 3 months, they're renaming it and they're doing a complete overhaul to the whole thing. So what the fuck does that mean? And the whole situation is crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like I don't know. Like I'm just thinking about it. Typically, I mean, a rename of the content implies that something pretty drastic changed within it, right? You know, I'm not losing my mind here.
But we have no idea what that is. We just know that the Shadow and Order update is supposed to be coming. Was supposed to be coming early March. You know, there was speculation that it was going to be delayed, which was a normal assumption to make, considering Bungie is launching a brand new IP in the same week. And even if it was by a week or two, or even a month, like that would have been, as a former hardcore Destiny player, that would have been acceptable. Like 3 months is kind of wild. They did that with the Final Shape also, and it turns out to be probably one of the best expansions that the game ever had. But like, this isn't an expansion, you know, like this is just a content update. So the more and more I see of Destiny 2, it's just like, it's kind of a facepalm moment every single time, because I just think to myself, oh my god, like what is happening? Like this game is actively burning down. I'm watching it in real time. It's wild. It's absolutely fucking crazy. So that is pretty much the entire Destiny drama going on. What else did I put here? The entire Destiny community is now in complete panic mode, essentially, and literally no one is any bit hopeful for the game's future. The last nail in the coffin has never felt more real. Yep, that is precisely how I feel, and that's what I wrote to Anthony in our news channel. If anyone that's listening,
I'm glad you were able to get down your thoughts.
Jesus Christ, man. So I know you have no horse in that race, but it just...
I mean, I still like to hear the updates. You know, I know the game, you know, means a lot to you. I was there with you at least for 2 expansions for however short a period of time. You know, I wouldn't say I'm obviously not anywhere near as invested as you are, but it is, you know, I almost like, you know, you're sitting there checking in on a loved one in fucking hospice. I'm like craning my neck to see this car accident that just goes on and on and on. Like, what's going on over there? You know?
I always said that I would play Destiny until they turn the servers off, and that is still like 50% true for me right now. I haven't played since December because there's been nothing for me to do, and I don't have anybody to play with anymore, so like I'm not going to bother. Yeah. But if they turn around and they do a complete 180 on the entire game and it ends up being a great experience again, I'll I'll go back if only to just check out what they've added and how they've turned it around. So I stand by that opinion, or that stance, I guess. But for right now, like I've got no reason to log in, and I'm not. I got other things that I want to play. So that's what's going on in the world of Destiny right now. Not a good look.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't sound like it. Doesn't look like it either.
Yeah. Moving on. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, so John Carpenter's Toxic Commando, which is being developed by Saber, they got a demo a couple days ago, and I actually think that's a very good sign, because companies don't just put out demos anymore. That is not the time that we live in anymore. So for them to put out a demo, albeit it was only on PC, which kind of sucked, but it is what it is. For them to put out a demo, to me, shows confidence in what they're making. I put about 3.5, maybe 4 hours into it, and it is like, if I could boil it down to a sentence, it is basically World War Z in first person. And I know World War Z has a first person mode now, but it's proper first person. There's ADSing, there's detailed reload animations, there's inspect animations. It was clearly built to be a first-person shooter from the ground up, as opposed to World War Z, which is a third-person shooter, but they added like a first-person camera view. But you can't ADS, which is probably the biggest thing for me as a primarily first-person shooter gamer. But yeah, so I'm not going to go too deep into Toxic Commando, because we do have a lot more to get to. But I enjoyed myself. I thought it was fun. Sometimes I just want to turn my brain off and just mow down hordes of zombies. And again, the optimization was not terrible. I ran it no problem. I feel like I cannot state that enough for any game that I play.
Yeah, it's sad that that's becoming more and more of a selling point. We've come a long way from like optimized games to, man, this isn't optimized, but at least it runs, to now it's like they're not optimized and they're also not running well. Yeah.
So and it's not a full price game. I think it's $40. So I think, which is reasonable. Yeah. And John Carpenter thought that it was good enough that he attached his name to it. So that's cool.
I wouldn't overthink that.
I'm not overthinking it. I don't think anyone is going to put their name on something if they don't at least know what it is. Apparently John Carpenter is like yeah. John Carpenter is he does like video games, I've heard. So I don't know. It's just interesting. I don't think like he wrote the game or anything like that, but yeah, I don't know. So yeah, the Toxic Commando is coming out in like 3 weeks at this point, and I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say I'm about a 7, maybe a 6.5. I don't think it's gonna knock my socks off, but it looks like a good time. Right. And for those of you that's listening, it's not like I'm not going through all the news that only I have found. I'm going down the list that both myself and Anthony have found and put it in the same channels. It's not like Anthony's not contributing anything.
I'm waiting
you do turn. Go on your rants. You go on your rants quite often.
Turn. We have to cover some news. There's going to be a big topic. I have my rant coming up. You don't need to worry.
Oh, God.
I'll be doing a lot of talking, more than I have been, very soon.
Oh, shit. All right, moving on from there. Something that Anthony posted. PlayStation is shutting down Bluepoint Games, the studio responsible for modern remakes of classic games such as Demon's Souls and Shadow of the Colossus. Yep, I thought there was more, but there's just... So there was reported originally by Bloomberg, and people are shocked about this.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say on this?
Very little. I was gonna say I don't think I've ever played a Bluepoint game, but from what I understand, their remakes and remasters and ports are very good. So, like, why close the studio? But that's essentially all I really know of Bluepoint.
Okay. So yeah, Bluepoint Studio was shut down by Sony. And I'm gonna give them a small bit of grace here, to kind of go alongside with what you just said. Bluepoint
It's Sony grace or Bluepoint?
I'm sorry, Bluepoint. I'm gonna give Bluepoint some grace. All right.
Okay.
Bluepoint did decent game collections before they were really common. That's where you
Right.
know them from. I think they
Yeah.
had one original game under Sony before they basically just never did anything original ever again. They did the God of War collection. They did the Metal Gear Solid HD collection. They did the Ico and Shadow of the Colossus collection, the Nathan Drake collection. They did Gravity Rush Remastered, and they basically their strategy, as far as I'm aware, and this is why people really love them because up to this point it was like kind of spotty, is they would take retail discs and like decompile them so that they were as accurate as possible. And I think they're in hindsight, a lot of them have a lot of small spotty issues, but they were decent. I don't remember having an issue with the God of War collection. I only had like 2 issues with the Shadow of Colossus that they did in the collection. Their Metal Gear Solid HD collection, I don't recall there being any issues. But what issues there were, other people at the time were doing worse, because we take them kind of for granted now and they're still kind of spotty, but like 15, 20 years ago, collections were kind of crap or like very rare that they were solid. That's a little grace I'll give them. Their remakes were less than stellar. I will say less than stellar recreations of 2 of the most style driven games of their time, namely being Shadow of the Colossus and Demon's Souls. And I can't stress this enough that if there was a term, you've gotten pretty comfortable with slop as a term, I would say, the last couple months, right? Yeah, it's fair to say.
Yeah.
I save it for select occasions, and this is an occasion I would use them because Shadow of the Colossus and Demon's Souls, the remakes by Bluepoint, are kind of like a good definition of slop because they are lesser versions of very creative titles, mainly from a visual and audio perspective. It's like they took, I guess what you could say, like, I mentioned earlier, it's like, they take the retail discs and they get a lot of data from that. Whatever experience in preserving data they had there came into play in the remakes, because mechanically I don't recall too many issues. I could be wrong, but the main issue that both of these games had is like the art style was all out of whack. The games didn't look nearly as good from a direction standpoint. Say what you will about graphics, it's like, this 2 to 3 generations removed game doesn't look as good as my PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 game. Like, that's not. I'm not talking about polygons. I'm talking about art style. The audio, in particular, the audio in Demon's Souls was like brutal. Like the voice acting and the music and the themes were misplaced. To me, what I'm getting at here is it just kind of goes to show they were not an artistic company. Like, they did not. I don't really think they ever proved at any point that they had the chops to do anything creative. My understanding is that they had good work ethic, apparently, because they, like, technical stuff they seem to be fine with, but the when it came to style and creative intent, they never proved themselves at all. I think I think notably some of the things, like they did a lot of support roles. I think they did minor work on PlayStation All Stars when that was a thing, however many years ago. And I actually think they helped with the Titanfall port to the Xbox 360. I think they were one of they helped port Titanfall somewhere. I forget where, but they helped. I think it was only on the Xbox 360 and the PC, right? And then later the Xbox One. Or am I getting that? Am I getting a wire across somewhere?
Titanfall 1. I don't
1.
think it was ever on 360. No,
I'm pretty sure it was on the
only
360.
It was a launch title.
Okay, I'm pretty sure it was on the 360. I think it got backported or something, and I think that's where they came into play. But anyway, so
Son of a bitch, it was. Huh.
Yeah, how about that? The last thing I really want to say about it is, like, there's a lot of people obviously grieving because of the nature of their small catalog, mainly being ports of phenomenal games and people experiencing them through Bluepoint. They have kind of these rose-tinted glasses on them. I really don't have that, just because, again, they did a lot of good, decent collections over the last decade. Their remakes were, I want to say, dog shit so badly, because they like Demon's Souls and Shadow of the Colossus are like games as art, I would say. Like they have a very respectable art style and intent. Demon's Souls in particular, I think, is one of the best looking, best sounding, coolest Souls games compared to the rest of the franchise and subgenre that followed with the different Souls-like games. And they massacred both those games in my eyes, and it's like it bothers me. But to anyone out there thinking that they were some kind of like insanely talented individuals that could do no wrong, I mean, remember that God of War live service game that got canceled however many months back?
Yes.
Apparently Bluepoint pitched it. They were the ones that wanted to do it. They were the ones that wanted to make it, and it fell through. And apparently when it fell through, confidence in the studio internally struggled over time, and it culminated with this cancellation, or this closure. So yeah, Bluepoint Games is gone. Really don't have any insanely nice things or negative. It's almost like a whelmed kind of thing again, just because they honestly, as much as, again, I'll give them credit for their collections, they didn't do much. I would estimate that
you can't really do much when your whole pedigree is remakes and remasters and ports.
Yeah, but I mean, they started with at least one original game, and they existed for like 20 years.
Yeah, fair enough.
You should have more than 10 games under your belt, and I don't think they passed that bar. So, it's they're not. There's going to be a lot of lamenting, and it's like I just don't get the big deal. They never really got their start, and I'm sure those people are still in the industry, so I'm not really. It's like whatever. The last kind of thing I'll say is almost immediately after, I think Sony was like doing a tease like, oh, what game would you like to see remade next? And I'm just like, that's a pretty funny thing to do after you get rid of say I've said my piece about Bluepoint's remakes, but people ate that shit up, man. They loved the fucking remakes. I mean, part of me wants to be mean spirited, but I can't get the excitement needed to like say, oh, rest in piss. Like you did nothing. You did a handful of good collections, then you ruined 2 games and created a lot of morons who will defend your work till the end of time. So
yeah,
good job. Go away.
Okay.
All right. What else we got?
Yeah, so Bluepoint closed. All right, I think this is when you go on your rant, my friend.
Oh, yeah? All right. So I'll get my rant out of the way, and then we'll get to whatever else we need to do. I have some news that you're getting acclimated to. It's more like 2 little stories kind of mixed together. One I put off for a while, one that's fairly new. But it's stuff that you're slowly getting. I can tell in your voice and how your ears that I can't see perk up a little bit whenever I bring up this topic. I have some FGC news for you.
Oh boy,
which is, like I said, slowly becoming your favorite. So I'm going to start with that kind of like older story with a little event recap I missed from a couple weeks ago because I was waiting. I wanted it to develop, some of the things I'm about to tell you. Okay. Frosty Faustings is one of the last remaining legacy majors in North America. As over the years, locals have shut down, upstarts have come and gone, regionals balloon to major costs, but they don't really get the importance or attendance. So overall, the pool is just kind of shrinking. I think there's 4 legacy majors left in North America, and that's kind of cheating because EVO is counted in that. As at this point, the biggest tournament in the world. I don't really think that's fair to count. Although, mentioning EVO, the other tournaments that stood alongside it in the early days, way back when, before the 2008 boom, there were some tournaments like Northeast Championships or Final Round. They're just gone. They're gone too. So, but anyway.
They're gone.
Yes, and they're gone. But anyway, so Frosty Faustings is a pretty big deal. A lot of people go there. The Faust in the name is based on a Guilty Gear character, so it kind of has that niche anime game spot from way back when. Air Dashers, It has a little bit of legacy. I think it's this latest Frosty Faustings, I think, was the 18th one. I think it's been running for about 20 years, I think.
Oh, wow.
And it had a bit of a poor reception, Daniel.
Okay.
Hygiene and player etiquette is on the decline. It used to be centralized. Yeah, it's been getting pretty bad out there.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Pause.
Yeah.
Hygiene, like people fucking showering and taking care
Yeah.
of themselves?
Yep, it's on the decline.
What? What?
Yeah,
I don't even know what to say. Okay, continue.
so you know how for years, like I mean, we've been around the block. I've gone to locals and tournaments. You've gone to Comic-Con more than a handful of times. We've gone there together, obviously. And you kind of know, like, there's a stigma around it. Not always true, but there was always a stigma, and people would make fun of it in like mainstream media, where they would just, oh, those smelly nerds, right? You know, and all that kind of crap.
Well, yeah, that's always been
that's
the
just a stigma.
stereotype.
Yeah, but there are certain areas that have kind of lived up to that. It used to be centralized to two specific games: Super Smash Brothers, and more recently, Guilty Gear Strive. With this was kind of a reoccurring thing. It's been getting noticeable over the last 2 years. I think this has been declining. There was some I forget what tournament. I might have even talked about it here. There was some tournament last year where it was like really bad. Like reports were pouring out to the point where it's like all the positivity in the world can't hide the fact that the venue smells like shit in specific areas.
That's awful.
Yeah, so it's on the decline there. You know, I mentioned last week that Riot, you know, 2XKO guys, they clearly dumped money into the event, and the result is that you have low-level matches taking up multiple main stage screens, you know, where you reserve like the big, you know, tournament brackets for, and that's kind of, you know, aside from the fact that, you know, you're seeing boring matches or just random matches, you know, that's just kind of like a thing you don't do. So there's that. You know, there's always more rumors about illicit sexual gatherings, as they've been increasing, you know, ever since, you know, the big orgy gate of whatever, you know, last year. Or however long it's been at this point, maybe a couple months. But there was a new one this year, Dan. Now I heard.
Where could it go from there?
Now I heard of this incident, and my first thought is, wow, that's new, right? But I saw some conversation, and I put it on the back burner because I'm responsible. Accusations like this happen all the time everywhere. It's been happening more and more in the fighting game community because more people are waking up to the fact that it's not all that great, or at least it isn't as great. It isn't as great as it once was, you know? So pot shots, rumors, lies, they're bound to happen more and more, and I'm a reasonable individual that waits for the facts. I don't jump the gun, even if it's opportunistic. I always try to, you know, absorb information and, you know, come to, you know, either a direct conclusion or a reasonable doubt. And I think I've reached it with this one. Now that the dust has settled, it appears to be the case that the public drinking water was spiked with an unknown substance, with multiple attendees reporting dizziness and fever-like symptoms. And I said to myself, that sounds outrageous.
That's like a felony.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, there's no way that didn't happen. But multiple people were reporting this. At a certain point, they were taping the water jugs shut, so there was clearly something amiss. So it was just an all-around disaster at one of the biggest majors ever. And to top all this off, Daniel, the leadership completely silent on every single one of these issues. None of them have been addressed. None of them
that's a bad look.
Yeah, it's a bad look. And it's just it's getting to that point, man. The fighting game community, it's like this is just becoming more and more standard, where it's just like bad things happen, guys at the top avoid responsibility, everyone pretends like everything's okay and everything's great, and the only thing they care about is, you know, wrangling in those mean people online, you know, the people like me that complain about, you know, bringing it up is more of a problem than any of the alleged stuff that happened there, any of the stuff that's been happening in greater frequency, and random events like people spiking the fucking drinking water at Frosty Faustings. So that was a story that, you know, happened a couple, you know, weeks ago. But now for the big one from this week is, let me just get the name of this company because I always fucking mispronounce it. I'm gonna see if I can pronounce it.
That is just so disgusting on so many levels. Like the hygiene thing is disgusting on many levels, but somebody spiking the public drinking water is that like you could do time for that.
Yeah, you got to understand too, like the bigger events like these typically have, like, you know, younger, you know, attendees and families go there too, you know. This is apparently closer to like I don't know, they said the junior section, but I think that's more like an area within the venue, and I don't know if it was specifically targeting the younger men. I don't know. But now for the week I can't pronounce it. I think it's Kadia. Now fully owns Evo, so Evo is now fully owned by the Saudis, and as
Get
you
them
can,
out.
as you can
They're not
probably,
welcome here.
as you could,
Sorry.
as you could probably imagine, the fighting game community is not taking this very well at all. You know,
Yeah, could imagine.
yeah, I see a lot of people. You know, I saw one schizo just saying over and over multiple posts in a row, "Don't go to Evo," like just constantly, all caps, back to back to back. I saw people saying like, "Oh man, what are we doing here? How did we get to this point?" And I just got to say, I mean, the Saudis. The first thing I'll say, and I say this all the time, is like, for the fighting game players out there that want it all, that want the games to have more content, that want the tournaments to be bigger, the payouts to be larger, for things to go global and stay that way, it's never going to fucking happen. But if you wanted something to ride until the bubble pops, it would be the Saudi and their vast treasure trove of money they're willing to pour in to improve their image, which is only half working because you still have people that are just like, bitching about it online or whatever. So I'm very curious to see, as we get closer to Evo, what the attendance is going to look like, because I think we're going to see a lot of those voices at the top, the big guys that love to talk, that were essentially bluffing like, well, if the Saudis get more involved, I'm never going to Evo again. People whose bread and butter is fighting game stuff and living at those tournaments. I'm curious to see how many go there. I'm gonna wager like 95% of the big names that love to talk this shit are either not going to acknowledge this and go, or are going to just shut their mouths right now because they're not going to back up the bluff that they were boasting about months ago, right? And for the people who are asking how did this happen, all I have to say is it didn't happen overnight. Evo grew and grew and grew. The leadership started to crack. You had guys leaving for what they thought were greener pastures. Like, I think one of the guys was on the 2XKO team before he got laid off. One gets removed because he's into males of a dubious age. And companies, the ones that the FGC voices have spent decades courting and getting in bed with and trying to grow the scene, to line their own pockets with the just all the stuff that comes with that. They stepped in, and the second you have corporate ownership, you are officially in turbulent waters because companies are fickle with investments. It bounced around with Sony. Sony and me is like, oh, this is a money sink, we got to get the fuck out of here, and they sold it to the Saudis, and that's where you're at right now. And also, and this is funny, I see a ton of people gassing up alternatives to Evo, right? Like some of those existing majors and super majors, that I was talking about, like something like a Frosty Faustings. There's a big one called CEO that is like probably the second biggest tournament, I would say, in North America at least. And they're all saying like, oh, this is the tournament. These are the tournaments where it's really at. It's all good. There's no issues. And my favorite tournament, you should just go here instead of Evo. And to that I say, you're a moron. Anyone who is saying that, you're a moron, because it's not that good. You just happen to like it. It has the same underlying issues because these are FGC issues. Only the locals are really safe, and even then not by that much. 2, regardless of the objective realities and the subjective experiences of you at your local, you don't want your favorite tournament to blow up, because the things that you've unknowingly avoided so far, or knowingly want to avoid going forward, can ruin these things for you if they want to. And 3, they will want to if you boost it as an alternative or manage to get enough people to stop attending the one you don't want them to. So basically, it's just another couple notches down for the fighting game community. And I think it's like I mentioned last week, all about the toxic positivity with the 2XKO thing and the free-to-play fighting games and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how many hits the fighting game community can really take, because something
I feel like Destiny.
Something I haven't seen in a while is I'm starting to see the games kind of splinter. And what I mean by that is like, we're starting to retreat into tribalism almost. Because like, The Mortal Kombat guys are fighting with the Guilty Gear Strive guys. The Dead or Alive guys are getting attacked by the Tekken and the Virtua Fighter guys. Like, everybody's kind of like, this is my one game, and now I'm going to rep it. And everyone's just picking fights with each other. Doesn't feel very much like a fucking community anymore. I'll tell you that much. And the last time that happened, like, Smash and the fighting game community basically splintered after that happened. Like, you know, there were other factors going into it, like with, when Smash was banned from Evo however many years ago at this point. I think it was like, you know, 14 years or something. You know, that, so there's a lot more that goes into it, but it's just like, I'm getting the same vibes, and you don't really, if you, let me put it this way, because I don't want to make any objective statements. If you care about the we're all together global fighting game community, that utopia that you've been sold on from your favorite streamer or whatever, you don't want to see communities fighting like this. You know, there's only so many times, because I've mentioned in the past, like, what these guys like to do is whenever there's an issue in the fighting game community, they do one of two things. They either pretend it's not happening, or they blame it on one specific game. You can't do those two things too often, otherwise every game has that problem, and nobody buys that there's anything good worth salvaging anymore. So now we're getting to this point where, like, everybody at the top has the fingers in the ears, the Saudis are sweeping in making investments, everybody fucking hates each other, attendance is on the decline, regionals never fucking recovered from the pandemic, locals are closing left and right because nobody wants to go out and deal with you fucking people anymore, and majors are consolidating into super majors, and all of the proceeds are going directly to the companies that you spent years begging to invest in. So it's just, I don't know, man. I'm not that kind of guy. It's like any week the bubble's going to burst, but it certainly feels like something big's going to happen. This isn't sustainable.
Yeah.
Not sustainable.
Oh, Jesus, fuck. It's so much.
Yeah, it's a fucking nightmare. I'll probably have more to say about it next week, because there's been a lot. Because, like I said, for the first time ever, it's not all sunshine and rainbows from the guys at the top. Like, every name that I've heard of that is still active over the last 2 decades, right? Or just about. Because, like, you know, I'm not big into the fighting game community anymore, but a lot of news still passes my desk. I still have a lot of things I hear. I talk to Harrison a lot about it. All the names are reporting some kind of issue, and it's never fucking like that. There's normally like, oh, it's just the one event, or oh, it's just a game, it's just this one game, or oh, it's just this, it's just that. Everybody has some fucking issue right now. So I don't know. It's just bad spot.
Yeah, for real. Damn.
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess we should probably move on from there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you put general topic industry health. That could be an entire fucking episode by itself.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
I don't remember. What did I mean by that?
All right, so then let's put a pin in it, because that is
put a pin
again,
in that.
we could go for like 2 hours on just that alone.
Yeah. Let's put that aside.
You also posted something from Eurogamer. Video games are losing the attention war to gambling, porn, and crypto, according to industry report.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, okay. I think the same people who are gonna be playing video games for long periods of time don't really gamble that much, and I mean, unless you're just like you got something wrong with you, crypto is. I don't know. I don't see the whole crypto thing either. Porn, yeah, I could see the argument for that, but crypto, not necessarily.
I would have liked
people would rather.
If they're putting crypto on there, I would have liked to see where day trading ranks also. You know, because it's basically the same fucking thing.
Fucking etrade.com.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of a loaded statement. I even said that it's such a loaded statement. But okay.
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I don't know. You seem more like just taken aback by the statement as a whole. The thing the thing. This kind of highlights two things for me, because I understandably see that it is losing a quote unquote attention war, and it's a war that the executives have been fighting. That's part of the reason there's a live service push to begin with, right? But I think the main reason it's failing isn't just the bad policies put forth by these executives. It's a big part of it, and they should really fucking stop. It's just that there's been such an effort to sterilize games over the last 10 years, all the way back to that, everybody likes to joke about it or put a, raise a red flag when you mention it because it makes you out to be some fucking conspiracy theorist. But it goes back to the original Gamergate and what we were talking about all the way back on episode 1, where it turns out there were people who were just trying to ruin everything that we liked. Here we are, like 12 years later, after that event, and it's like, these things don't happen overnight, but the repercussions are there. I talk about censorship and localization all the time. That's a small part of it because that Eastern Gaming Center is like a bastion of creative freedom that the West doesn't really have anymore. Everything is just so between your favorite, the corporations, the different progressive policies and everything like that. Games just get worse, and you oust talent and just... while I don't think it's necessarily important, I should really just say that the attention war, it's not, if you're looking at it, it's like you have to fight against gambling and porn and crypto. That doesn't really matter. Games, at the end of the day, are experiences and they are art. And as long as they are selling profitably and getting by and doing well, that's all that really matters. I know that, the corporations don't seem to think so. The corporations love to think about it as like, we need more money, which is why this comparison even happens. But the reason it's happening needs to be fixed regardless, because while I don't care if it wins the attention war, those same things that are making it lose this attention war are hurting games as a whole. So it's like, they want to fix it for X reason and they'll never fix it because of the same people pushing this. I want to fix it not to win this attention war, but to get games back on track where they need to be. And I think that might be what I meant by the industry health kind of thing. It's just like, it's when you take something and you do two things: you sterilize it at every turn wherever possible, and on the flip side you put forth basically money draining practices over everything else. You're going to end up like this, where you just please no one, even the people that you're trying to net with the one or two live service pushes that a person can handle mentally.
Again, we could spend so long talking about this, but games themselves, they are art. They are experiences, but they also have to do everything in their power to compete for your time. You and I are, I'm one person. I can't play all the games that I want to get to, and I've had this complaint for forever at this point. Mm-hmm. There are so many games that I want to know life that I just don't have the option to because there's so much to do in them. I only have so much time, and there's other things that I want to get to. And it's not on me to make a game good enough that I want to play it, right? It's on the developers. And if with all this profit chasing, we talked about this at the beginning of the episode, you will end up hurting everything in the pursuit of the dollar, as opposed to you making a good game and the money will follow whenever that happens. It just pisses me off, man. It really does, because I just want all my games that I like to be good and work right, and the vast majority of the time they just fucking don't.
It's really simple. At a certain point, we talked about before, something's got to give. My whole thing is like, again, I don't care about the attention war so much, because like my whole thing is to, like, I look at it this way: Requiem's coming out, in 5 days. I've been talking about it a while. Let's say hypothetically it's really, really good, right? I'm not going to play that game week over week over week. I'm going to play it. I'm going to enjoy it, hopefully. If I enjoy it a lot, I'll probably go back and play it again. If they end up having a side mode or side content, I'll put a bunch more hours into it. And then eventually I'll put it down. And then months from now, a year from now, the urge will hit me to play it again if it's a great game, because that's the point of great games. You make great experiences, you're regarded well by the audience, and you have something special that stands the test of time. It's not... this is where the push me shove kind of so to speak, where it's just like, that is an optimal game experience, because that's what games are, right? Not everything needs to or can sustain being live service, pump as much hours as you can into it. Even the ones that we love to play, like when we played Call of Duty all the time, I play Rivals, a decent amount. I played Overwatch years ago. We play the finals. If I put so much time into fighting games, that's kind of its own little special thing. It's just like not everything is going to hold anyone's attention the way that some of those experiences do. They don't need to, and you can't monetize time to that degree because you lose something in that process, you know?
Yeah.
I guess that's where I was really going with it whenever I wrote that. If I was in some kind of fugue state, I think it's really just a matter of like what bothered me so much about this article is that they're talking about attention. It doesn't really fucking matter. But if they wanted to fix it, the best way to fix it is to fix the things that are just making it worse for everybody, and they don't want to do that because there's so much cultural rot, man, in there. And you know, as much as I like to say it's getting better, and it is, they're gonna fight tooth and nail. And if they get the opportunity to dig in or reverse course to a certain degree, they will. Because you got to remember, like the fucking Gamergate lunatics, they spoke at the fucking UN. Some of these fucking lunatics. The rot runs deep, and you know, the only thing that we will be that is an absolute certainty that we will be dealing with till the end of time is corporate overreach and censorship attempts, right? We can curtail both of these things to a limited degree. There will be a lot of bright spots. Everything else, every other issue that we've talked about is avoidable and fixable. At every single level, and the nasty things we talked about, like corporate overreach and you know censorship, those can be pushed back. Those can be managed. You know, you can push against it and win against these things. But ultimately, like this report, it really just means that it's just like I don't know what's got to give, but something's got to give. You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Anyway, all right. Let's continue on.
Yeah.
We already talked about High Guard. So not really gonna get into that. Okay, onto the big things. I'm gonna start in reverse. So, how do I even word this? So Patrick Soderlund, the CEO of Embark, who just put out Arc Raiders a few months ago, that wound up in unbelievable success. Embark has been funded by Nexon. Arc Raiders was so fucking successful that Nexon decided to put Patrick Soderlund basically in charge of everything gaming related.
Okay.
What's the title here? He's like Chief Operations Officer now, something like that. Okay. He's Nexon's executive chairman. Like, and he's still functioning as Embark CEO. So that's pretty crazy. Yeah. That's pretty crazy.
I mean, that could be good things, but you also have to worry that, you know, one, his importance overall to begin with, and also spreading him too thin, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just surprised by the guy. Obviously makes good games. I guess he's more of a leader than like a developer or a coder or something, because Nexon was just like, yeah, you know what you're doing. You could head up everything now. So that's a thing, and I say it's big because like that's a pretty big shift in what one person does. You know, first you're one thing leading a studio, right? But now you're leading the all of Nexon and their gaming development for long-term strategies and growth and blah 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 blah. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was pretty significant. I wanted to throw that in there. This is not as big as I would have thought. Okay, now on to the real big thing.
Yes.
This was posted, 2 days ago? So from Jeff Keighley. Phil Spencer is retiring as the CEO of Microsoft Gaming, effective immediately. And Asha Sharma, also from Microsoft, will take over as CEO. In addition to all that, Sarah Bond is also leaving. This is the biggest shakeup probably in Xbox's history. I would say at this point.
I would say it's, if not the biggest, it's the most sudden of the large shakeups, I guess you could say. You know?
Well, sudden, sure. It was probably in the works for a while. It's probably in the works ever since Microsoft bought Activision.
It's possible.
Yeah, but anyway, that's pretty huge, you know.
Yeah.
And we've talked about Xbox ad nauseum, but we'll talk about it some more because it's fucking Xbox.
Yes.
Xbox is in such a bad way right now,
Hmm.
and the buck stops with the leadership, right? So,
Yes.
Matt Booty, Phil Spencer, and Sarah Bond are like the three big people in charge of Xbox, and every decision and move that they have made has gone from bad to worse to the
Yeah.
point where the console sales are like they're in the negative. They're so low.
Yeah.
Uh, every decision they've made as far as game development goes is just like a big head scratcher. Them closing certain studios. Uh, I mean, the list goes on. But honest, I am of the opinion personally. You don't have to share this opinion. I mean, I know you have your own, but
Hmm.
uh, I am of the opinion that this Xbox leadership team, Sarah Bond, Phil Spencer, and Matt Booty, they fucking ruined Xbox. I think they ruined it, almost beyond the
Um.
point of repair at this point.
So I think the decline still there's a great deal that still the blame lies with Don Matic back when the Xbox One
Okay, that's
snafu
fair.
happened. I think
Yep.
now it takes a lot of people to put a brand on a decline for that long, but the decline started there. Like he started this. He was the first snowfall in this avalanche.
Right.
And my whole thing about Phil is I think that when he stepped up, there was a lot that he needed to do. He had been with the company. I think when he retired, he was with it for
It was
38 years.
28 years. Oh,
38.
38, right.
He was there for a
God,
while.
it's such a long
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that he was as right a man for the job as anyone could be, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not absolving him of all wrongdoing, because that ultimately he was the lead for as long as he was. I do think that I remember thinking this at like an E3 when it was Project Scarlet, the Xbox One X was teased or whatnot, and I'm just like, it seems like something in my mind clicked where I'm just like, they don't have the teams or the talent to get the content where it needs to be, even though, because where they had the most control, where they're able to really get the engineers together and make something good, is like everyone can make a good console, right? At this point, it's really just putting the hardware together, and I think that Scarlet happening, the Xbox One X and the Xbox Series consoles being what they are and being, solid consoles, I think that's indicative of strategy that Phil had the most control over. That's my opinion on that. I think that at the end of the day, Matt Booty was kind of a nothing that was just really a drag on the team. I think Sarah Bond was really just, almost like it's almost like you had Xbox running as they were for a while, and like somebody at the top decided they needed to add some kind of HR consultant. That's what she felt like to me. She was just there, like hampering the whole
I was
process.
gonna say diversity hire, but you got there on your
Yeah,
own.
I mean, diversity hire is a good way to put it too. She gets a lot of points with me. I don't know how much she was actually with this, or if she was just able to say these things. She was the one who was the loudest about games preservation and the backwards compatibility stuff. She gets some.
Yes, I
She
will
gets
give
some.
her that.
Yeah,
I
she
agree.
gets some points for me there. But ultimately, and I'm not saying that without this element, these guys would have like knocked it out of the park. Ultimately, I blame Microsoft leadership proper, not Xbox leadership,
Yeah,
because
that's fair. Also,
the reason I say this is
Xbox was always an afterthought to them.
yeah, exactly. That's like the big thing. We've talked about it ad nauseum, but like my reasoning for this, because I'm not doing this as an Xbox fanboy or a Phil fanboy. It's just every single insanely negative decision that we've talked about or that we've seen from Xbox has at least one or two precursors where you hear rumors and murmurs from higher above Xbox and Microsoft leadership wanting to push certain things. A lot of this comes
Right.
from Satya Nadella and like his executive cohorts and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's kind of exemplified by the fact that the new leader of Xbox was handpicked by Satya apparently, and
I wonder
humorously
why.
enough,
Tell
and
me, enlighten
and
me.
and humorously enough, it's also like a demotion for her. So I think this was it really just goes to show that Xbox is really just this fucking afterthought, because it's just like it wasn't making the money they want to. Obviously, it was a big investment into Activision, so they flipped some tables, rearrange some things, put in somebody.
They also had the misfortune of buying Activision when Call of Duty is at its worst it's ever been.
That's a like imagine for a moment that the deal happened like 4 years
in
earlier.
2009 or something.
No, not even 2009, just 2019. Like imagine Xbox actually had some fucking balls with Call of Duty to do more exclusive shit, and they owned Activision when Modern Warfare 2019 was coming out. That would have been a slam dunk.
Yeah.
That would have turned that would have fully recovered them out of that fucking Xbox One snafu of the yesteryears. But yeah, so that's my overall opinion, my takeaway on the past leadership. Now, Daniel, do you have anything to say about the new leadership?
Oh God, do I? So
go ahead.
Ashra Sharma, like you said, it was a demotion for her. I think technically on paper, she has no background in anything gaming related, so that's kind of a big red flag right there.
Yeah.
And two, she was the VP, or was she the director of engineering and marketing at Meta?
I forget her exact position going into this. She did work at Meta. Her position before this was near the top of Microsoft's AI executive leadership.
Yes, which only further emboldens Microsoft to pull the bullshit that they're doing, and further pisses me off because I don't want AI in fucking everything, okay? And now it's going to be in everything. And I'm being a little hyperbolic here, granted, but like this was not like an accident pick by Satya Nadella, right? This is obviously very calculated. He wants Microsoft Copilot to be in everything. Meanwhile, nobody fucking wants it anywhere. Everybody hates it. And so what does he do? He picks the person leading Microsoft's AI division to lead all of Microsoft gaming or Xbox gaming, whatever. And I can only imagine the shit that they're gonna push in the years to come. I am not hopeful whatsoever. I am more than happy to be proven wrong. I will be the first person to celebrate being proven wrong, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people have obviously and understandably been looking at her career. You know, I think this wasn't her first stint at Microsoft. I think she was at Microsoft for a while back in the 2010s. Then she jumped around to different places. You mentioned she was like head of messaging or something at Meta.
No, she was head of product engineering and marketing, something like that.
Okay, something like that. And then she was at Instacart for a while, and then she had a brief stint as president for the core AI product at Microsoft, which
she's just a CEO for hire. You know, I don't know what these people do day to day. Obviously, you don't really need any kind of a background in gaming to lead a gaming division of a company, but it's just the writing on the wall that really concerns me here. And next thing I know, the next time I turn on my Xbox, I'm gonna have the big Copilot pop up asking me if I want to opt in. No, thank you.
I think this is two things. One, I think Satya wants a direct line to Xbox to manage that more directly, so no more dicking around with two leads essentially with Sarah and Phil, and Matt is still there. I think he CCO, I think. And so I think Satya said something along the lines of building services that reach billions, and services is a big red flag because a lot of people have been noting that services is what may have helped lead Xbox to this bad place. Here's a funny thing. So as soon as she was announced, people start digging in and start tweeting at her on Twitter. They find her gamer tag, and it's been kind of a snafu because everybody is claiming that she's using an AI chatbot to respond to everybody's comments, and I gotta say, some of those are I'm a little skeptical over some of those answers, And then at the same time, she's apparently only played games for like 2 months, so maybe it's like she got the call 2 months ago and had like the interns like set up a gaming account.
I have to make a gamer tag.
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't know, like even the most like forgiving critic in the industry space, nobody has any good things to say about this. Especially not like, people are just like, well, what's your favorite games? She goes, oh, Halo, Valheim, and GoldenEye, and that just sounds like a manufactured response. People started quizzing her on specifics of the
Oh
game,
boy.
and that's where you get like the AI like responses, going in. So it's just, it looks like a fucking mess waiting to happen. Now,
Yeah,
there's a few
because it
like
is.
nuggets in there of like lip service that like sounds promising, but I'm not an idiot. Like, somebody's just like, you need exclusives on the Xbox, and nobody's gonna buy the Xbox, and she just goes, I hear you. That doesn't fucking mean anything. That doesn't mean a fucking goddamn thing. It's just bad spot. Bad spot. Not a good look. The Xbox needed a change. This does not look like the change Xbox needed. Now, that being said, all the talk about qualifications and accusations of nepotism, because how some of these companies, there's a whole thing about Indians in these tech companies, and they only hire other Indians and whatnot, and that's what people are claiming here.
Honestly, I didn't even consider that for a second.
That's a whole thing, but like, that's all of that aside. There's rumors about like the latest Xbox being really hurt by this delay, because they wanted to frame up like a very strong launch title kind of thing. But I'm just like, what? I don't see the big deal, because number one, there's a Call of Duty that comes out every year, so you don't need to worry about launch windows, and you're putting your games on fucking everything anyway. So I don't understand the big deal, unless you want to go back to exclusives, but I doubt you are. So yeah, not a good week for
Ironically,
Xbox.
which would be the only way to really save Xbox.
Yeah, like I said, just start locking down those exclusives, man. You bought them all. You may as well start acting exclusive.
Yep. Swing that big dick around, Microsoft.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
$7 billion dick or whatever it was.
Listen,
40 billion.
you've suffered enough, right? It's time to start putting exclusives out there. You've tried every
And I'm not
which way.
saying that as a fanboy. I'm just saying that from somebody who understands the basic values of economics.
Yeah, I'm sitting on the side watching all three major companies make fucking stupid decisions. I would like them all to just get back to focusing on quality games and healthy competition, please. Be nice.
Yeah, well, fucking apparently at this point it'll be a cold day in hell before that happens.
Yep.
And on that note, I think we're all caught up.
yeah, I think that's everything.
Cool. Another big fucking week this week, dude. Jesus.
Yeah, major.
What's gonna happen in the next 7 days?
Oh boy. Next week we talk about how Resident Evil Requiem is the best game ever made.
That was going to be my next question, when the release date is.
Yeah, it's in 5 days, so I'll have played it by the time that.
I'm very curious.
I am too.
Hear your opinion on that.
I'm curious.
And I'm curious to see if there's mercenaries in it or not. I really hope there is, and if there is, I will buy that game on the grounds of co-op mercenaries alone.
We'll see what happens.
Yep. So, anywho, if anybody out there is still listening, this was episode 94 of the Pregame Network podcast. Thank you for listening. And as always, we'll be back next week for more shenanigans and bullshit and being offensive in the gaming industry.
Yep.
It's always fun. All right. Thank you very much, and we'll catch everyone next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.